This is the ancient rainforest of northern Australia. It's home to one of the largest birds on Earth. We're here to explore why this mysterious animal has been called a living dinosaur, and to find out why it's regarded as the most dangerous bird in the world. But we won't find one up here. This monster lives down on the ground. We've come to Australia to find a rare creature that looks more like a velociraptor than a bird. Its call can be heard for miles across even the thickest rainforest, although they're notoriously difficult to find in the wild. They can be taller and heavier than a full-grown man and are armed with 5-inch talons that have actually killed humans. We're going to investigate the prehistoric origins of this bizarre bird, the cassowary. But first, we hope to see one on Queensland's Cassowary coast. Biologist Simon Watt's going to search in the heart of the jungle. Anatomist Joy Reidenberg's going to try the beach. And I'm following a lead further inland.
I'm in possibly the oldest rainforest on Earth. It's older than the Congo, older even than the Amazon.
Is the knife in case the cassowaries get too close?
No, definitely not. It's a cane knife and just
effective.
North Queensland equivalent of a machete.
I'm with Peter Solaris, a tropical fruit farmer who's lived all his life alongside these birds.
How do you spot them among all this undergrowth?
There you go. See that track there? That's before the last rain event. You can see another footprint there. So the bird's gone up and come back. So I don't know which was first, but it's had rain in it.
There's one somewhere around here.
Yeah, there's one somewhere, yep.
The jungle is so dense that they could be a metre away and you'd still not see them. Unfortunately, I found nothing but tantalising footprints.
I can't believe it, it's right there. Wow. A wild cassowary just walking right in front of me. This is really unbelievable. My raincoat out in front of me in case it decides that I'm a threat. I feel like a matador with a bull, because these birds do have some notorious weaponry on their feet. Okay, now I'm a little scared. That was too close.
A few miles down the coast, I'm going to a place where cassowaries stray out of the rainforest into suburbia. Jenny Cameron's invited me to her house to experience a close encounter. Hello, Mum. Wow. So what's the story?
He comes here and sits under the tree there and sits there all day.
That is extraordinary to see her kind of through your kitchen and your,
it's a
your
safe
sink and
place
you're
to
washing
be.
up. And
I wouldn't like to be outside doing this. They do sneak up on you.
That must have scared the living daylights out of you, didn't it?
It does frighten you a little bit. Yeah, I've been filming them sometimes and not concentrating properly, and they've actually come up and tried to take a little piece of the camera.
Look here, here she comes.
Oh, here she is.
Here she comes.
And this is Bella.
And a little chick behind her. It's amazing, isn't it? I've flown halfway around the world to see cassowaries in the wild, in the rainforest. And where do I see one? In somebody's backyard, right outside their kitchen window. Cassowaries are endangered. In recent years, 2 huge cyclones have destroyed large areas of their habitat. With the rainforest flattened, they enter towns, searching for food. Here they're increasingly vulnerable to road accidents. Half of all recorded cassowary deaths happen on roads. There are now only around 1,500 left in Australia, so each death is significant.
Seriously injured, this endangered cassowary was never going to live. Struck by a motorist along Bramston Beach Road near Innisfail, a local vet was forced to euthanize it on scene. With the car travelling at 80 kilometres an hour, the 60-kilogram bird didn't stand a chance.
The Queensland Parks Wildlife Service collected this bird shortly after it was euthanased. It was kept frozen for us so we could investigate the anatomy. Wow, that is a monster bird, isn't it? Oh, there's its broken leg. That is so sad. Let's leave it there to thaw, because that's going to take a good 24 hours or more to thaw out, isn't it? After it's thawed, we're going to dissect the cassowary to uncover clues that will help us trace this bird's evolutionary story. Carrying out our dissection right here in the middle of the rainforest at the Rangers station, and we're joined by Graham Lorriton, who's a cassowary expert, a vet. And the first thing we need to do is to get as much data as we can, but it's also a great opportunity. Just look at this thing. It is clearly a bird, but it is massive. We've got a beak and a pretty kind of obvious bird head at this end, but look at the colour of this neck, then this massive monstrous body that's got feathers, but it looks more like hair. Look at these kind of spiky quills sticking out. Moving down to the iconic part of this bird, these incredible legs, which do look as if they've come off some weird, enormous reptile, don't they? But here is the obvious injury that was the cause of death. I mean, it's not a hope in hell of repairing it.
Any injury like this, it's a death sentence.
You think we can take this off and examine the foot up a little more closely?
Sure.
We can probably just cut it right here.
Try and get through the skin there, I reckon.
How tough is that skin?
It's pretty tough.
A little tension, maybe we'll get right through here.
What are your first impressions of that?
Velociraptor? I would say this looks like a dinosaur. It's a hell of a big chicken foot.
Yeah.
It's tough and leathery and scaly like a reptile, with a nice, serious weapon on the side here. Let's just see how big this foot is compared to mine. So here we've got the toes, the foot, this is the heel, and this is the ankle here.
Plump your ankle on top of its ankle.
Oh, right.
Ankle to ankle. There you go. Your toes,
That's a fair comparison.
reach the fracture line.
That's about it. So its foot is twice the size of mine.
But this foot isn't just something to stand on and get you about, is it?
Oh no, so you can see this dagger here is used to defend itself. Maybe if we can go onto the intact leg here. So when a bird is feeling threatened, they use it as a dagger, almost in like a forward karate kick motion. It will then just jab. Yeah.
Presumably, this movement is when it's jumping at you. You've got fully flexed like that.
Yep.
That then goes.
Whoa!
Straight out. Exactly.
Straight at
Look
it.
like arrows coming straight
Okay.
out.
Exactly.
We've got a melon down there. Let's just see if that claw would go into a melon if you
give it
held
a try. You'll see how ripe the melon is.
Wait, you want me to hold this?
Okay,
Yeah,
you
you
hold
can-
it.
you
I'll
give it a
show you
go.
how far it'll go because I don't want to hurt you. This is going to go to about there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay.
You ready?
Right. Okay.
Yep. Oh, you got it.
Thick end.
Yeah, so it goes straight through. Or a fair way in
that.
there.
And it'll be quick. I mean,
It's
you
quick,
wouldn't
yeah.
react in time to get away from
I'm
it.
glad it was not my belly.
How you going, mate?
Not too bad.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I'm looking forward to meeting your cassowaries as well.
Yeah, they're looking forward to meeting you too, mate.
How many have you got here?
It's my job to meet the animals.
Henry's the small one, Henry's the aggressive one.
I've come to Johnson's Crocodile Park to find out why cassowaries have earned their fearsome reputation.
Yeah, they make you a bit nervous. They are slightly intimidating looking when they're like that. This is not the natural order, being frightened of a bird. It seems the wrong way around.
You got to watch out for them flanking us. They're very, very smart birds. A cassowary can actually go around the back of you when you're not looking and run up behind and kick you. So you always got to be aware of everything around you. You can run away from crocodiles, they're fine. These guys, they chase you. The previous owner of the farm here actually used to use a hat to cover his face when he was getting too close to him. So he's just grown a natural disliking of hats.
Wow!
I'm lucky not to have experienced the darker side of these birds. There are stories of cassowaries attacking zookeepers. This footage shows just how dangerous they can be. When threatened, the cassowary will lash out, kicking and slashing with their razor-sharp claws. Cassowaries have broken legs with the power of their kick. They have even killed humans.
Joy's eager to uncover the anatomy of the ferocious kick. A few strokes of her scalpel and the leg's off. That is one very, very heavy leg. Are we going to take this apart a little bit and start to see some of the biomechanics of this and what's going on?
Yeah, let's finish taking the skin off so we can actually see the musculature that's involved.
Watching this with some interest is Scott Hockmanall, who is a paleontologist and dinosaur expert. People call these living dinosaurs. Is that because of this, Scott?
It's fantastic. I mean, if you think about without the feathers and you just extended the scales up onto the leg, people would just think this is a dinosaur leg. I mean, that's the fact is, it is a dinosaur leg.
Yeah, at first I thought it was just this plump because of all the feathers, but now with that off, I see it really is huge.
He's a monster.
Heavy.
Right.
And look at the size of these cables. These tendons are enormous. Why don't we take a closer look at this? We can clean this out a little bit and then pull on it.
If we shrunk down and actually blew up a velociraptor, we would get the same proportions. It would look identical.
This side is the extensor, the Achilles tendon. It's going to pull the ankle open. But closing it is going to involve tendons on this side that are pulling it up. So we pull on the extensors. Look at that. You can see the toes coming out.
Just twitching. It's kind
Look at that. That's amazing, isn't it?
That's amazing, yeah.
So those are extending the toes just by pressing on that tendon, like a little marionette, pulling on the strings. And if we pull on all of this together, it should bring up the ankle joint.
So, yeah, you should.
Yes.
If you, Graham, pull on that lot and you pull on that lot at the same time, this will fly.
You better watch out over there, Scott. Here we go, ready?
1, 2, 3.
Shoots it straight out, yeah.
So it's the muscles on the front of the calf as well as on the back that are both contracting at the same time to get that full extension. What we're seeing in front of us are the ingredients of a hind leg that are almost identical to what you would have seen if you were dissecting a dinosaur millions of years ago. It's incredible to think this bird is expressing dinosaur DNA from its past in its T-Rex-like legs. Surprisingly, cassowaries will eat meat too. Throughout their bodies, there's plenty of clues that birds are descended from dinosaurs.
Open up its wing.
This thing is freaky.
Isn't it?
Calling
weird?
that a wing? That's
It's a strange wing, but have a look at this.
There's not much there.
It's a little reduced wing, but on the end of it is a claw.
The claw is a vestige of a dinosaur forelimb.
So why don't we cut into it and see if we can see the structure of it. A little tension right there, pull. Good. Perfect.
There you go.
So if you separated that from this animal and you just put that in front of somebody, you wouldn't call that a wing, would you?
I wouldn't know what to call that.
You ain't going to get off the runway with that.
No.
It is so peculiar. I mean, these these quills, you think they do have a function, even if it's a kind of bit of a sideline?
So they obviously don't use them to fly, they don't use them to flap around, but they do certainly use them to help protect themselves as they go through the rainforest. You actually see the vines and the thorns slip off them as they're walking through the dense rainforest.
So let's have a look inside this.
You'll see the same structures in this humerus as we find in theropod dinosaurs.
When you say a theropod dinosaur, what kind of dinosaur are you talking about?
Well, they're the meat-eating dinosaurs, everything from T-Rex to Velociraptor.
So that's the elbow joint,
Just like that.
humerus, radius and ulna.
And that claw is that.
That's right, it's probably off the middle finger, so
Is it?
that one
That
there.
one there.
Yeah.
Okay. The genetic link between birds and dinosaurs is becoming increasingly clear. Until recently, it was thought dinosaurs were scaly, reptile-like monsters. Then, in the 1990s, scientists realised something amazing. Dinosaurs had feathers.
Dinosaurs are proverbially extinct, but actually the dinosaurs didn't go extinct. Dinosaurs flourish today as birds. The evidence was available in the time of Darwin in the form of a historic fossil, Archaeopteryx. It had feathers like modern birds. It flew like modern birds. It had a general build like modern birds. But it had a long bony tail. No modern bird has that. It had teeth in its jaws. No modern bird has that. It was halfway between a modern bird and what we think of as more traditional dinosaurs.
Archaeopteryx is the missing link between birds and dinosaurs. All birds descend from this flying dinosaur.
You know the earliest birds had feathers, but what we don't know is exactly how they first took to the skies. There are two main theories. One, that they were tree dwellers and leapt and glided from branch to branch. The other, that they were ground-living species which ran and used their forelimbs to take off. Something we can still see today in chickens. Hey, come on, come on. When chickens run, they flap their wings for balance, for traction, sometimes for flight. Perhaps the earliest attempts at flight looked something like this.
To understand how the first dinosaur bird took to the air, we're going to have to look for clues in the wings of a bird that can fly. This is the heaviest flying bird in Australia.
So this is called a bustard, it's called a plains turkey.
Look at the size of these wings.
It's massive.
He's a big bird, obviously they do fly as well.
Okay, so here's the other wing. So we're talking like that orientation, so humerus down there, radius and ulna that way. So these extraordinary quills and this very feathery hair-like, they're so radically different to this.
Absolutely. This is the intriguing part. These bits, these quills, look just like the flight feather quills from the bustard.
So this part right over here.
That's right. If you lost all the little fluffy bits, you just basically end up with a quill. So that's really great evidence to show that these guys had an ancestry that were flying, because these primary feathers are the main feathers used for flight.
When you look at this, you have all of these parts of the feather that are sticking out here. And when they're all seamed up together, it makes one nice uniform plane, kind of like an airplane wing.
That's right.
These are the barbs. Those barbules are so tight, it's really hard to split it. But there we go. So now we're just seeing one individual barb. And off of that, if you look really closely against it, and you really need a microscope to see that well, are the little tiny hooks, the barbules.
Under the microscope, the structures of the barbs become visible. Moving in closer, we can see the tiny hooks that hold each barb together like Velcro.
If we take that single barb and we let it flow back in line with its friends, all you have to do is push that together, and the little hooks of the barbules seam it up, and now...
From an engineering point of view, that is beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Let's take a look at the cassowary feather, which is completely different. When we put that feather down and look at it against this white background, we notice that all of these little barbules are not together. They're not seamed up like they were here. So you don't have that planar form where you can now actually get lift. Everything's going to flow right through this, like it's got holes all over it, basically.
When you look at the fossil record of feathers, they start out as very simple single barbs, just basically like a duck down covering of these dinosaurs, but then they start to evolve more complexity right up to the flight feathers.
Feathers alone weren't enough to fly. To create lift, birds had to flap their wings. So should we look at the muscles that actually power flight to be able to get this thing off the ground?
We should start with where we first cut the wing off, which is right here. There's the joint where the arm was, and then this is the breast area, the part that you would eat on a chicken. But unlike chicken breast, look how dark this meat is. It's much more in a sense like duck meat. Chickens aren't great flyers, but ducks really are. And when we open this up here, what we're seeing is a massive amount of this muscle. It takes up this whole area right down to the very front of the bird's chest. The other thing to notice is when we pull these muscles completely away from the bird's chest, is we see a really interesting bone sticking out here. This is like the keel on a sailboat. All of this is providing extra surface area for that muscle. This is all bone.
Flying birds have evolved a specialised anatomy for flight. A large keel-shaped sternum provides an anchor for the 4 chest muscles. The 2 smaller of these muscles lift the wing. And the huge breast muscles power the downstroke. These attach to elongated arms, which are hollow to reduce weight. And the whole bird is covered in aerodynamic feathers, which make birds such graceful flyers. When birds first evolved from dinosaurs, they could fly. Somehow, the cassowary lost its ability to fly, and we want to find out why.
Here, Graham, if you can just pull that back there. You know what? Immediately I noticed there's quite a big fat layer on this animal. I didn't notice that on the buster. There's a huge amount of fat here.
So these guys get really fat. You get up to a few inches of fat between skin and sort of flesh underneath. If the season's good, if there's a lot of food around, they'll get 2-3 inches of fat, especially over this front part of their body. And that's obviously another reason why they have no chance of flying whatsoever, because they're big and heavy.
So the only thing I've seen that resembles muscle is this tiny little bit right over here. You know, I wouldn't think I was even cutting into a bird looking at this. You know, when you cut into a bird, you expect nice breast meat, you know. But there's just nothing happening here. This tiny little wimpy thing. This is it.
So this is
that's it. So if we pull this down.
Is this all bone here?
This is all bone.
And no keel?
No keel. No, none at all.
This is what I've just dissected off the bustard. So that is the flight muscle of a bird that is a fraction of the size of this.
That's right.
And so scaled up, if this needed to fly, this muscle would need to be out here somewhere.
Massive,
absolutely enormous.
Imagine how long the wingspan would be in a bird this size if it could fly.
Just huge. This is a bird that's come out of the tree. It doesn't need to fly anymore, and the only bit that's really left to show that it evolved as a flying animal is that.
Little wing. That's right.
One tiny, tiny little wing.
The wonderful gift of flying is deep in the DNA of birds. They are ancestral flyers, and yet there are many birds, of which the cassowary is one, that has only a tiny little wing. They've lost their ancestral wing. Why did they lose the ability to fly? The reason is they arrived in a place where they didn't need them anymore. There aren't predators there, for example. And flying is expensive. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do, but it costs an enormous amount in energy, in huge breast muscles. And so when you can do without flight, it can be better to do without flight. The breast muscles shrink, the wings shrivel up to these tiny vestiges.
We've seen how the evolution of feathers and wings helped dinosaurs take to the air, but flight requires other adaptations. The muscles that flap wings have huge oxygen demands. We want to look inside the cassowary to see whether it's retained the turbocharged breathing apparatus needed to power flight.
Okay, I'll just get the rib cutters.
Okie doke.
And I'm just going to try and see if I can just go through each one. Okay. Yep. The animal breathes in, the air goes straight down into all of these air sacs, which are all through the bird. There's an air sac there, and they're everywhere. When you actually go looking, you find a lot of these sort of little membranes.
So these are not where oxygenation was taking place,
No,
right?
it's just like a balloon inside the bird. They just fill up and then let go of the air again as it goes back through the lungs. So the air goes into them, and then as it breathes out, the air goes back through the lung tissue. The blood, as it flows through the lungs, gets that oxygen out, and then the air goes back out.
To power flight, birds adapted dinosaur breathing into a highly efficient multi-stage process. Balloon-like air sacs fill over 60% of their body. When they breathe in, air passes straight through the lungs to the rear air sacs. Breathing out then moves this fresh air into the lung for oxygen exchange. A second breath in moves the used air to the front air sacs. And a final breath out releases the used air from the body. This means new and used air never mix like they do in our lungs. It's why birds breathe much more efficiently than us. The air sacs that aid breathing provide another unlikely clue to the cassowary's past.
These air sacs are paired, so you have some on this side?
Yeah, sure. So what you can see here are identical
on
on the other side. They join in these ribs that we cut earlier. You can see they're hollow. They're not hollow because they've got bone marrow in them. They're actually hollow because the air actually sits down, goes down into those even.
So these air sacs actually extend up into these hollow spaces.
Into the hollow spaces, into the ribs, yeah. Through a little hole
like
there.
this?
Exactly.
The air sacs penetrate the skeleton throughout the body. They enter through tiny pores in the bone wall, filling the space inside with air.
This is a major feature of dinosaurs. The theropod dinosaurs that led to birds all had hollow bones like this, in their ribs, in their vertebrae, all through their skeleton. T-Rex had them, Velociraptor had them, Australovenator from Australia had them. They all had these hollow bones. But of course they weren't used for flight. They were used to lighten the load. So although flying birds are thought to have these air sacs and hollow bones to help them fly, which is actually the case, a flightless bird like this still has the hollow bones. It's because of its ancestry. It's a theropod dinosaur.
To find out what else our big bird has in common with its ancestors, Scott's taking Simon to see a dinosaur.
You're going to meet Banjo. He's 100 million years old, and he's the most complete meat-eating dinosaur ever found in Australia.
Wow.
Well,
This is what he'd looked like.
This is what he would have looked like, this fantastic head with these great sharp teeth, big arms with big claws, and these massive long legs. So you can think of a cassowary with these massive long legs and claws. More terrifying than T-Rex and Velociraptor. Now, when we look at a cassowary's ribs, they look absolutely... They're just so similar to Banjo. So here we go. There's the rib.
Same shape again.
Exactly the same shape. Now the feature that we found in the cassowary was they were hollow because they have this pore. Now this pore is where the air sacs enter into the rib, making them hollow. Well, lo and behold, there's the pore in Banjo's bones.
So why does a dinosaur want hollow bones?
Well, they want to be light as well, but for a different reason. They want speed, they want to be a hunter. So they need a light load so that they're not spending as much energy when they run down their prey. If you were very heavy, you'd expend so much energy just trying to get speed. When we dissected the cassowary, I was seeing structures that I'd only seen in Banjo. So this is a skeleton of the cassowary. So we'll take the middle foot, for example. This is a phalange from the foot, the middle toe of Banjo. And here we have the same bone from a cassowary.
Oh, it's spooky almost to think.
It is.
It's exactly the same shape, it's just a question of scale.
It blows you away to think that these animals are separated by 100 million years, yet their toes are absolutely identical.
About 230 million years ago, the dinosaurs split off from the rest of the reptiles, and then they flourished mightily through the so-called Mesozoic period, which was brought to an abrupt end 65 million years ago with the famous mass extinction, probably caused by a meteorite or comet colliding with the Earth. Only two groups of dinosaurs survived that catastrophe, both of them birds, and they have given rise to all the modern birds that we see.
The two surviving groups of birds have very different numbers of species. One has only 6 species. It includes mostly non-flying birds like the cassowary. The other group is gigantic. It includes nearly all the 10,000 species of flying bird alive today. Both groups evolved a highly sophisticated way of communicating. A dazzling variety of complex sounds.
G'day, Buck. How are you? Pleased to meet you.
Really good to see you. I'm meeting with cassowary keeper Clay Mitchell, who's hoping one of the big birds will sing for me.
The boys are always generally a little bit smaller than the girls. This girl here is actually a big girl.
Okay, can I give us some of this by hand?
Oh, of course you can. It's like feeding the kids McDonald's. Everything gets swallowed whole.
Here you go, do you want that? It all goes down the same way, doesn't it? It's just a pick, chuck, gone, isn't it?
Down.
Absolutely incredible.
We feed that twice a day, 2 kilos in the morning, 2 kilos in the afternoon.
I gather she's quite a talker as well.
Yes, she can boom. Actually, if we sit back after giving a little bit of a feed, she might actually give us a little bit of a boom for us.
Okay, well, she's had a good half of that, so let's leave that for now. Should we just perch over here and wait?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
And it can just be spontaneous, just happen.
Yeah, basically. There's no real given rule as to why or when she actually does it, but it's definitely just sort of say, I'm big and I'm bold and I'm beautiful. Cassowary style.
That is some call.
Oh, look, you definitely feel it. You don't just hear it.
Absolutely. It's not just what you hear. Inside, you can almost feel yourself vibrating in sync with her. It is an incredible noise.
Oh, it's the deepest baritone you've ever heard.
It kind of vibrates inside you. It's awesome. If you didn't know one of these was out there and you heard it, you were walking through this forest, it would scare the shit out of you.
Give it some tension there.
Joy's interested in how low-frequency sounds are made in her whale research. She's keen to take her scalpel to the cassowary's windpipe to see how it makes that boom.
Okay, so now we're pulling this out from there. Let's bring it around here past the esophagus. So the air is coming in through the nose here, going down the throat, down in this windpipe or trachea, till it gets to this point where the pipe actually splits and one goes into the left lung and one goes into the right lung. Most birds do their songs from a series of valves that are located down here that are different. And this double set of valves can actually create more than one sound at the same time. You get one from one side and maybe another restriction on the other side, so you can get 2 different sounds generated. So what I'd like to do is cut this open and see if the cassowary has the same structure as other birds that sing. And already what we can see here is something that's vastly different than what you see in a mammal. It looks like there's 2 drum heads in here, one on this side going down this main pipe and one on this side going down that main pipe. These 2 drum heads are seamed up against each other when these 2 pipes are closed. But in addition, the part where it comes together is actually quite rigid. So what we've got here is something that really will stay open, allowing the vibrations to pass along here. Now, in a songbird, they have a relatively short neck. They still have this, they still make these sounds. But this bird has a relatively long neck. So I'm wondering whether the length of this pipe in some way relates to the lower frequencies. Kind of like looking at a pipe organ. The longer your pipe, perhaps the longer the sound resonant space it's using. I think what we're looking at is something that could make a vibration. It could certainly make a fundamental frequency.
I've heard one of these guys boom, and it's something you will never forget. And what we're seeing right here in front of us is the anatomy that allows that to happen. It's got these kind of drumming membranes to create that very low frequency. It's got a very long trachea, which can be the amplifier, and the whole thing's powered by the respiratory system, which is essentially a huge set of bagpipes. One anatomical feature that may help radiate the sound is the strange structure that sits on its head, the casque. Its purpose remains an enigma. This horny growth on top of its head is a kind of iconic part of a cassowary and very dinosaur looking, isn't it?
And it's the thing that everyone talks about when they say they've seen a cassowary. You know, they see that big helmet on the top of their head. The classic thing is people think it's hard. They think it's like a rhino horn or something solid.
I mean, it's very spongy and it's not hard at all.
When we squeeze it, you can see that it's soft. It's quite soft. It's a hollow structure. It's not solid at all.
Can we have a look inside it?
Sure, let's go for it.
And Graham, I mean, what are the various theories for the
Sure,
purpose of it?
so there's a few. The helmet idea, I think we can quite simply disprove. You know, it's not a protective structure. When they go through the bush, they do sort of put their head down and go, and maybe it just helps part the way a little bit, but it certainly isn't protecting them from predators or anything like that. The second theory is like a resonance chamber. When they're making that deep noise, does it help amplify the sound? The theory that I probably tend to think towards is more of a showing off type structure. You know, I've got a big casque, so I'm better than you type thing.
Like a crown.
Yeah, like mine's bigger than yours, exactly.
Every casque is a unique shape and size. Perhaps cassowaries use them to recognise one another when choosing a mate.
This is looking really weird. It looks like
it's peculiar.
Looks like
it's looking like one of those scourers that you clean your kitchen pans with.
Exactly. There's air there, but there's blood vessels, and there's this delicate sort of structure going through it as well.
I can't figure out what this is. It is such a weird anatomical structure. It's soft here. It's crunchy over here. It's got practically nothing here. Yeah. That's the skull right there.
Brain cavity below that, yeah.
But wait. There's a hole here. That seems to be a hole right there. It's heading down towards the nose, away from the ear. And then there's another hole next to it right here, but I can't seem to get this tool into it.
No one's done any research at this part of the anatomy. This is a first for anybody.
It's extraordinary that this animal is so poorly understood, but we are now beginning to start revealing some of the mysteries of this incredible bird. For such a huge, colourful bird, the cassowary is still shrouded in mystery. No one even knows how many are left. David Westcott collects the DNA from cassowary dung to estimate the population size. Cassowary dung contains the unique DNA fingerprint of the bird which left it. By collecting and analysing each sample, David can work out how many birds live in any one area. His investigations have also revealed the cassowary's key role in the life cycle of the rainforest. Do they tend to lay them anywhere as they're feeding? Or?
Wherever's convenient. Aha, here you go.
What? You got one?
Yep, just up here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's one big turd, isn't it?
It is, it's a thing of beauty.
The number of seeds in here, in terms of if all of these germinated, in terms of new growth, new plants and keeping the rainforest alive, this is one really important turd.
That's right, that's right. A lot of these seeds will germinate.
And this is the piece of the jigsaw that just tells you how reliant the rainforest is on the cassowary.
That's exactly right, yeah. Ah, look at this. This is
what?
This is an old cassowary poo. So,
oh wow, look, you've got actually germinated seeds
that's right,
here.
that's right. When they eat the fruit, a lot of the flesh of the fruit gets turned into a pulp, and that's all disappeared and washed away or degraded, and now we're just left with the hard seeds that remain. Yeah, and look, they're splitting open and
wow. And this is the beginning of new rainforest.
That's right. Well, hold on. Listen.
What?
Oh, wow. Okay, very quiet in here. Look, about 4 metres away. David's just spotted this. A wild cassowary. We are literally 3 or 4 metres away. It's feeding, it's picking up what look like tiny, tiny bits of fruit. It's such a dramatic scene, isn't it? This incredible bird in the rainforest. It is just the perfect scene, but it's time to let him or her be. It's almost impossible to tell the difference between males and females. The wattles that dangle from the throat are thought to play a part in luring a mate, but even they don't enable us to tell the sexes apart.
We'll just try and pull all this out if we can. Just cut down through there. And you can see out the other side, and there we go. That's what I thought it was. This. Okay, what do we?
I know what this is.
Okay, we've got eggs.
It's a girl.
We've got an ovary there. We've got an ovary with what have we got? Follicles here.
Wow,
We've got
look at them.
Loads of them. Look at all these.
3, 4, 5 big ones.
The size of the ovaries reveals that our cassowary was a breeding female.
This bird was hit in sort of August, September, which is the breeding time for these guys. So she would have been out looking for a mate, getting her eggs ready. When they're fertilised, she's obviously going to lay those eggs.
The female will mate with a number of males and then lay between 2 and 5 huge eggs. Next, something extraordinary happens. The mother abandons the eggs and the father takes over.
The male will sit, and he sits on those eggs.
Well, hang on. So she just then says, "Thank you very much, done my job, I'm off. You,
Exactly.
oi, sit now."
Yeah, exactly.
That's a life.
That's called nagging.
It's a single dad from then on. He does all the work.
The cassowary dad is left to rear the kids, from baby chicks to young adolescents.
In fact, the interesting thing with the female is not always are the eggs that she lays for that male, not all of them are his. She might mate with a male down the road. She might mate with a male over the hill.
That's outrageous.
And he'll sit on them. He'll raise them. He'll grow them up, and he'll go. And he doesn't really even know if they're his.
When they reach maturity, the male leaves them to fend for themselves.
Fascinatingly, there's some evidence that some extinct dinosaurs, including Tyrannosaurus, did the same thing, because fossils have been found that appear to be males associated with eggs. So it'd be wonderful to think that this ancient method of reproduction has been preserved from dinosaur times in cassowaries.
So Tyrannosaurus rex was the kind of ultimate dad in terms of a role model for bringing up the kids.
Well, for them, yeah.
That's shocking. Scott's taking Simon 600 kilometres inland to Lark Quarry, where a remarkable set of fossils is preserved. They show one last similarity between dinosaurs and the cassowary.
Well, welcome to Lark Quarry.
Wow, that's...
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
It's like the outside inside.
So this is an absolutely unique set of dinosaur footprints. There's nowhere else in the world that you can see these, because it's a 15-second snapshot in time. But I'll paint you a picture of what this place is like. Imagine you're standing on the edge of a billabong and it's drying up, and it's left this big flat mud flat, so it's completely open.
Yes.
There's a group of dinosaurs, about 150 of them. They're all congregated around the water's edge, and they're all about the same size, from chicken-sized to about the size of an emu or a cassowary. Something startles them, and they all start sprinting in the one direction, obviously getting away from something.
And do we know what that something was?
Well, we do have some footprints that might help that out. Let's have a quick look and we'll show you. So we come up to this side of the trackway and look.
Is that it?
Yes, that's right.
Are you serious?
Well, there's not just this one. Look, if you look out to the end, here they are, one after the other, moving along, 11 footprints in total, going all the way back to the back of the quarry.
They're enormous. enormous. These are bigger than an elephant easily.
It is. They're three-toed dinosaur footprints. Again, just like a bird, splayed out and with claw marks. So if we place the cassowary's foot into the trackway, instantly you see some amazing features that are similar. Big long toes with big claws on the end of them. This is exactly what the theropod trackway had. And the scales, look at those scales, they're so dinosaurian, it's amazing. So when you trace out this animal's foot, you can really see that this would have been what the animal's leg would have looked like, just much bigger. Isn't it amazing? I mean, we are looking at a dinosaur foot right here and a dinosaur footprint. This is today, that's 100 million years ago.
Yet another link between the cassowary and the dinosaur ancestors, but it's a pretty sobering thought, isn't it? The last thing we find in the dissection is that this road traffic accident didn't just kill this individual female, it wiped out potentially future offspring, future cassowaries. And if we don't protect these animals and stop them dying, we run the risk of losing the closest living relative to the dinosaur. There are few more prehistoric-looking creatures swimming in the ocean than the sea turtle. It has a head like a dinosaur, a beak like a parrot, and looks like a tortoise, with flippers. Many animals survive as predators, relying on sharp teeth and claws to catch their prey. But turtles and tortoises have a different approach. They've evolved nature's ultimate defense strategy. The armor-plated shell has kept them safe for over 200 million years. But today, that's beginning to change. They face the constant threat of being caught in fishing nets, in fishing hooks, or being run down by boats. In all, in fact, every year, tens of thousands of turtles perish unnecessarily. We'll be investigating what happened to one giant leatherback turtle that very tragically died a few days ago. And by revealing its anatomy, we'll find out why a kidney-like organ sits where its brain should be, how its throat can withstand deadly jellyfish, and how it got its extraordinary shell. Join us as we go deep inside the giant turtle. Florida, the Sunshine State. With hundreds of miles of golden sands, beachfront condos and every water sport on offer, this is a paradise for holidaymakers. But it's all bad news for the sea turtle. They're being squeezed out of their prime nesting spots. And even out at sea, they're not safe from danger. But if you thought Floridians don't care about what happens to the turtles, you'd be wrong. They go to extreme lengths to save them. Emergency response units are on call 24 hours a day. And dedicated turtle hospitals treat the sick and injured. But sadly, not all their patients make it back out to sea. When turtles die on this coast, many of them end up in the freezer of Jeanette Wyneken, an anatomist from the Florida Atlantic University.
The first leatherback I ever worked on, I transported in the back of my car. I'll never do that again. Ever.
As a child, Jeanette was fascinated by dinosaurs. When she learnt they were extinct, she quickly settled for the next best thing. She's invited us to help her dissect a giant turtle that was picked up a few days ago. God, it's hot when you get out, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is.
Really warm. So where is the freezer? Here.
Right back here.
The last big turtle that I had anything to do with was a terrapin about that size. So I thought that was big.
This is going to scale up a wee bit. So.
My God. That is absolutely colossal. It's a monster. Is that...
That's a...
Normal. That's normal.
That's normal. That is an adult male leatherback turtle.
You've got to have a look at this. It is absolutely monstrous. That's 1.5 meters, isn't it?
Oh, it's 2 meters total.
2 meters total. That is a huge animal. But we have to get it to the lab.
Yes, we got to get.
So we're going to get it on this trailer.
That's
How
right.
heavy is this?
It's probably around 350 kilograms to 400 kilograms.
That's the weight of a horse. So is it going to be a lift from the edge of the shell job?
Well, actually, it's on wheels.
Oh, is it?
We were clever enough, thanks
That's
to
a hell
these
of an
guys.
evolutionary trick, isn't it?
Yes.
To develop with your own wheels for when you're dead to move you around.
Yeah, so why don't we get a couple of you guys tugging on these ropes?
Mind your fingers. Okay. Okay, let's go. 2-hour trip down the road. It's absolutely sweltering. The leatherback is the world's largest turtle. This one struggled ashore alive after being hit by a speedboat. The propeller sliced off his front flipper. Despite the rescue team's best efforts, he died the next day. We've taken the carcass to a post-mortem room purpose-built for dissecting marine mammals. You just get a real sense when we've unpacked the tarpaulin of just how massive this turtle is. It's colossal. Absolutely colossal. We'll have to leave this to thaw overnight before we can explore what lies under its shell. As darkness descends on Florida's beaches, the ocean begins to stir. I've come to witness one of nature's most magical events. This is Mark, say again, over. I'm joining Simon Watt and Joy Reidenberg to help a group of scientists search for females coming ashore to lay eggs.
Carefully, don't step on anything dark.
Yeah, I'm terrified I'm going to hear a crunch sound or something.
An hour into the patrol, there's a sighting.
Hello, Mark. Yes, I have a loggerhead sea turtle here. She's at the beach.
Oh, that's brilliant news. Where are you?
DCF kilometer 8.3. How soon can you be here?
5 minutes over. Wow. Oh, she's huge. She is huge. Just look at this. I mean, I've watched lots and lots of animals around the world, some incredible sights, but this is right at the top of the list.
It's amazing to get this close to a wild animal.
Yeah.
It's almost like she doesn't care about us.
She doesn't seem to even register. I'm glad that these lights are kind of beyond her reach, you'd think.
How many other 300-pound vertebrates can you get up this close to? And if you do it right, you pose no threat or to her, and she is totally unaggressive.
So she's got quite a clutch down there already, I mean.
Yes, she'll lay as many as 3 or 4 at a time. So many that you can't actually count them with the naked eye. Marine turtles lay more eggs than any other kind of turtle, any other kind of reptile. And that's because they know that they're going to lose a lot. We think that only 1 in 10,000 makes it to maturity to come back here and breed in 25 years.
So the strategy is very simple. Just produce as many as you can on the hope that one maybe will make it through its entire life cycle to come back to this beach as a female and carry on the next generation.
That's exactly right.
It's an incredible statistic, and one which we hope to investigate further as we delve into the turtle's life story. In fact, the sea turtle's brief forays onto land are the legacy of its distant ancestors, as Richard Dawkins explains.
All modern sea turtles and land tortoises are descended from ancient land tortoises that lived in the early days of the dinosaurs. Some of them then went to the water, in which respect they resemble whales and manatees, dugongs, sea lions, and so on. Unlike whales, sea turtles still retain, as it were, one foothold on the land. They have to come back to the land to lay their eggs, and so that's a betrayal of their ancient land heritage.
You would never think that you'd get this close to something so rare. It's really strange, you know, I try not to personify animals, but you kind of can't help but feel a bit emotional when you watch something like this laying eggs. She just sprayed us, didn't she? Yeah.
As the female covers her eggs, the scientists move in to measure and tag her so they can monitor the breeding population.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and put these in here right now.
Terrific.
I'm going to go in. I'm going to
Whoa!
insert it.
No, good girl, stay
That's
still.
okay, it's all good.
So she's tagged?
Yes, now she's tagged.
So if you ever come back, we're going to know.
You got it.
There she goes.
Once her eggs are safely buried, she returns to the sea. Back at the post-mortem room, the giant leatherback has thawed out. Now we can begin the dissection to try to understand how this animal evolved its defensive anatomy. Marine vet Nancy Metty has been called in from one of Florida's top turtle hospitals. She suspects there may have been something wrong with this turtle before it was hit by the boat. Right, Nancy, the trauma here, if you peel that back, is pretty obvious.
It's obviously propeller strikes. We've got parallel sequential cuts through the shell and then into the soft tissue also, and actually traumatically amputating the left front flipper.
The fact that it got such trauma up the front end here says what to you?
Typically what a sea turtle will do is attempt to evade a boat. When they hear the sound and their hearing is very good in the water, they will begin to dive. I think this turtle was not evading this boat, or not even making an attempt to evade. Potentially could have had some sort of a flotation problem, which was preventing it from being driven underwater by the force of the blade.
Nancy, would this guy have survived if it hadn't been so traumatic, the injury from the prop, and just lost the flipper? Would it have survived or not?
Leatherbacks, because of their enormous size, don't do well with any flipper amputation of the front, whereas other species, smaller species like the loggerheads or the greens, actually can do very well with an amputated front flipper.
This loggerhead turtle had both its front flippers sliced off after being caught in a fishing net in Japan. Its swimming was severely impaired until scientists came to the rescue. They created a pair of prosthetic flippers and attached them to the parts of the arm bones that could still move. The loggerhead took to the artificial adaptation immediately. But unfortunately, our leatherback was beyond surgery. You ready? 1, 2, 3. To go inside a turtle, you first need to turn it over onto its back. We're going to remove the internal anatomy layer by layer until we end up with an empty shell. We start by removing the lower protective layer. Just lift the other end, Joy. How heavy is that?
Can't even get a grip on it.
That's quite a weight, isn't it? Joy, who's more familiar with the insides of large whales than giant turtles, is surprised by her first impressions.
You think of a turtle shell as having bone all the way around. There's some bone right over here, but what's really amazing is this part is just fat. So a turtle shell made out of fat is very unusual. In fact, it looks a lot like a marine mammal because it seems to have a blubber layer.
In most sea turtles, the lower shell is made up of 9 bones, which are fused together to form a solid plate. But in the leatherback, these bones are reduced to a ring around the edge. Filling in is this layer of fat, which not only covers the belly, but encircles the entire body. But what's it for?
Leatherbacks are really unusual in that they are able to maintain a warmer body temperature than the environment. It's generating heat through its muscle action, and that core of heat is basically being trapped to a certain extent by this blubber layer.
So by having a big blubber layer, it's like wearing its own winter jacket. Even though we think of it as a cold-blooded reptile, it's actually not cold inside.
No.
It's maintaining heat inside.
That is essential if you're going up to the waters off of Portugal or Africa. Some of those waters are quite cold, but they're very rich. It's a good place to feed. And if you're a reptile that's got to feed there, you've got to maintain enough body temperature to function.
Protected by their thermal shield of fat, leatherbacks have been able to conquer the oceans. Leaving Florida's sunny beaches behind, they swim right across the Atlantic to our British shores, where they come to feed on jellyfish, which flourish in our cool seas. In fact, the largest leatherback ever known was found in these waters. This giant, caught on a fishing line off the coast of Wales in 1988, was thought to be 100 years old and weighed almost a ton. Being big is another way these turtles deal with the cold.
Reptiles are traditionally described as cold-blooded, but that's rather misleading. They're not so good at regulating their temperature as mammals and birds are. Lizards do it by moving into the sun to get warm, moving out of the sun to get cool. Now, a large animal, and this probably includes large reptiles like dinosaurs and indeed leatherback turtles, large animals can retain heat because the surface area of the body is relatively small compared to the volume of the body. And leatherback turtles really could be called almost warm-blooded.
But leatherbacks are by no means the largest turtles to have ever existed. That record belongs to this extinct relative, Archelon, who was 3 times bigger and roamed the seas 70 million years ago.
However big they get, all turtles start off tiny. After seeing the female lay her eggs the other night, I've come to Florida's Gulf Coast to find out about the next stage. Getting out to sea alive.
Hey, Eve.
Hey, how are you, Simon?
Not bad. Do you have a hand there?
Oh, absolutely. Here.
I've joined Eve Haverfield, a conservationist who dedicates her life to saving sea turtles. Every morning, she digs up nests that have hatched and counts how many baby turtles made it out. First, she shows me some of the dangers they face whilst they're still in the egg.
Those little reddish things are fire ants, and they hurt and they can decimate an entire nest of hatchlings.
Wow. And that's that hole. Is that a crab?
Yes.
So this nest has not had it easy?
It has not had it easy. We may not either if this crab is still in here. Yeah, could be carnage in here.
Are these crabs going to go for us?
They could. If you stick go ahead and stick your finger in there, Simon. They could. You could end up with a crab on your finger. It doesn't really hurt. It's just more surprising.
Yeah. I'd rather not be surprised, though.
I know. Ah!
Whoa. Guy doesn't do it to us. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm sorry.
Don't apologise. That gave me a fright as well, actually, just seeing that thing.
It just, as I said, the element of surprise.
Yeah.
Even before they hatch, the attrition rate is high.
Actually, I've got quite a few here. Oh no, that's bad news as well. These are unhatched, and this one, yeah, that looks just there.
That's been attacked by fire ants. Some hatchlings got out, but I'm not surprised that we're going to be seeing some abnormal eggs. Oh, shoot. We had a storm here at the beginning of August. These little guys apparently had already hatched out of the egg, but not out of the nest, and obviously they drowned. They cannot tolerate, an extended time period underwater. This is so sad. This is not good. But this is nature. I can accept this. I don't like it, but I can accept this more easily than I can something that is done by humans. This is nature. This is part of it. This has happened throughout the eons.
Getting out of the nest alive is just the start. A hazardous race to the sea lies ahead. Natural selection ensures only the hatchlings with the best adapted genes survive running this gauntlet. One by one, they're picked off. And just when they think they've reached safety, the ocean's many predators attack. It's thought that only a quarter of the hatchlings will see past their first day. Where they go next is still a mystery. Young turtles are rarely seen. Scientists call this part of their life cycle the lost years, a time when they find food to grow big enough to fend for themselves.
This is the most weird-looking mouth I have ever seen.
It is kind of a showstopper.
The head is where we'll begin our investigation into how these animals are able to grow so big on a jellyfish diet. Joy wants to look at its feeding anatomy.
So we've taken the head of this turtle off, and I want to take you on the tour of the feeding apparatus because it's actually quite interesting. So the first thing you notice right away is that there's no teeth on this animal, not like you'd see in a mammal, but there are these pointy extensions that are sticking out of the front and also on the top and the bottom. These are acting like teeth. They can certainly slice, and you can see how it's like a big parrot beak as it goes back and forth like this. In fact, if I were to put my finger here, I think I'd lose it because that's pretty sharp. What's really interesting is that as this animal is biting and taking a slice out of the jellyfish, it needs to squeeze the water out of its mouth because it doesn't want to drink all of that seawater. So it's going to actually push the floor of the mouth up and squeeze the water out. And then when you go inside, there's more pointiness. All of this is actually quite bizarre. All of these pointy things here are going to help push the jellyfish down, keep them from coming back up. It's a one-way trip. And not only does it start right here at the mouth, but it goes all the way down the esophagus and all the way down to the stomach.
Jellyfish have been roaming the seas for over 500 million years. They're found in every ocean, from the shallows to the deep, and can gather in blooms 100,000 strong. These tentacled beasts are amongst the most venomous creatures on Earth. So with all the seafood to choose from, it's odd that turtles developed a taste for them. Why turtles are immune to the sting remains a mystery. But what's remarkable is how leatherbacks can fuel their giant bodies on this diet. There's not much to a jellyfish. It contains 95% water, so it's a bit like eating nothing but cucumbers. Can I have a little feel inside here? Because I want to feel what it's like to be a jellyfish.
Yeah, be careful if you try to come back out. It's very sharp and pointy.
Ooh, that is really
It's a one-way path, Mark. You might not be able to get your hand out easily.
That is weird.
Do I have to cut you out?
That is very... Very strange
These are
feeling.
very, very sharp.
We're going to follow the length of the deeply strange digestive system to find out how the leatherback manages on such a low-energy diet.
So if we follow that underneath the windpipe or trachea, we see just the esophagus right here. And we're going to follow that underneath the heart. We're going to pull that to the side. So as it runs under the liver, you can see my hand emerging again here. There's a continuation of the esophagus right here. So it continues around this corner like this, comes back up here where the propeller had cut through the esophagus, so you still see those pointy things in the esophagus here, loops around again here, goes again under this piece of liver, and eventually ends up in the stomach, comes back around on this side.
It turns out the leatherback has an extraordinarily convoluted digestive tract. In other animals, the food pipe leads directly from the mouth to the stomach. But in the leatherback, it takes a circuitous course around the stomach, making it 6 times longer than other sea turtles. It is already looking phenomenally long. It's funny, isn't it? It doesn't matter how many times you do this, it never ceases to amaze me how many miles of digestive system there are inside of an animal. We've got the whole of the digestive system now out on the table, and look at this. This is the inside of the esophagus, or the food pipe going from the mouth down to the stomach. And I tell you, if I showed a photograph of that to 20 of my mates who are vets and said, what is that? They would never in a million years say it was the inside of an esophagus. It is the weirdest thing I have ever seen inside an animal.
It's totally sea turtle.
And they go from really quite small here up near the mouth, and as you get kind of 2 feet in here, they are absolutely colossal. I mean, look at that. It's like a finger, very pointy, and then down at the base of it, there's loads more. And it's incredibly thick, the wall.
Yes, and keep in mind, many of them are feeding in cold areas, and so you actually see the muscular wall and then this insulating fat. So if these animals can insulate and not lose body heat as the food comes in, especially when they're bringing in cold water, they're saving energy.
It's an insulated food pipe.
It's an insulated food pipe.
It's so cool. This long, spiky food pipe is the key to how this turtle can cope with its diet of jellyfish. For this giant, its feeding philosophy is quantity, not quality. To prevent its stomach filling with seawater, the food pipe acts as a temporary storage vat. When it fills, muscles squeeze the water out, whilst the finger-like papillae keep the jellies in, before they're then passed into the stomach. This unique adaptation allows the leatherback to eat its body weight in jellyfish in just 1 day. There's very little in this turtle's stomach, but something else catches Nancy's eye. So Nancy, what have you got down here?
Well, we're still examining the mucosal surface here of the stomach, and there are these black lesions here which can be typical for some sort of worm eggs. These creamy white ones are more classic for tapeworm infested larvae, so we'll be biopsying those as well.
Anything in here, Nancy, that you're seeing at the moment that gives you seen possible parasites, that's any indication about this animal being unwell enough to be underweight?
Not necessarily. You know, parasites are typical for wild animals, so we don't necessarily, unless it's an overwhelming parasitemia, we don't necessarily consider it a cause of death. It could be part of why they were ill, but it rarely is the cause.
From parasites to predators, there's not a lot that can kill an adult turtle. Apparently, not even old age. In the sea, they can live to 100. And on land, giant tortoises can live over 2 centuries, making them the longest living of all large animals. It's even possible that some still alive today may have seen Charles Darwin when he visited the Galapagos Islands in 1835. The secret to their long life is not just a protective shell, but remarkably strong organs, which don't break down as they age. Slow and steady really can win the race. It seemed like nothing could touch them until man came along. For centuries, pirates, whalers and explorers stocked up their ships with them. They weren't just easy to hunt and tasty to eat. These reptiles can survive without food or water for up to a year, which made them the perfect livestock for the long voyages at sea. In the Galapagos Islands alone, 200,000 giant tortoises were killed in just 3 centuries of slaughter.
When it comes to survival, the odds are really stacked against the sea turtles. Their nests are invaded by ferocious fire ants and crabs that devour their eggs. Those unlucky enough to emerge to the surface are easy pickings for birds. And those that make it as far as the sea face the ferocious jaws of sharks and fish and even other turtles. But if you think you couldn't make a bad situation worse, some turtles face another hurdle, because that is the Gulf of Mexico. And out there, there's oil. In 2010, an explosion on the Deepwater Horizon oil rig unleashed a vast slick of crude oil, covering an area the size of Scotland, smothering marine life. President Obama called the tragedy the environmental equivalent of 9/11.
We will not rest until this well is shut, the environment is repaired, and the cleanup is complete.
Although the rig was 60 kilometres off the coast, so much oil was released that it took only 6 weeks for it to start washing up on the beaches. A turtle disaster loomed. Once they hatched, a whole generation of turtles would head straight into the deadly sludge. With no time to spare, a rescue operation was launched. The plan was for hundreds of volunteers to try to dig up all the eggs laid over the nesting season and transport them across the state from the devastated beaches of the Gulf of Mexico, 800 kilometres, to the oil-free Atlantic coast. Here, NASA's Kennedy Space Center joined the rescue efforts, offering its temperature-controlled facility where the eggs could complete their incubation until they hatched. 70,000 turtles now had a second chance in life. Fortunately for Eve, her hatchlings here in southwest Florida escaped the catastrophe.
In this area, the oil did not present itself here as an oil slick. It may be on the floor of the Gulf, but it's not here on the surface, and that's why we're able to let them go into the Gulf rather than relocating them.
Yeah, but that's incredible crisis biology, that idea of taking them from one coast and putting them on another just because there's nothing else you can do. The decision to move the eggs was made knowing it could upset one of nature's most mysterious migrations. As adults, turtles return to the coasts where they were born to lay their own eggs. So whether the rescued hatchlings will find their way back to the beaches where they were laid, or where they swam out to sea, remains to be seen. Should they return, they will do so for the most important part of their life cycle: mating.
One of the most amazing things about this is we basically have this animal that lives in a box. And when they mate, you have to get 2 boxes to fit together. So when a female accepts the male, he climbs on her back. But then you've got all this shell in the way. And so they actually have a very large internal penis that becomes externalized. And it's a pretty impressive structure.
It's certainly larger than I thought it would be for a turtle, but it's not nearly as big as it is in a whale. Because whales don't have this whole box problem. The whole problem they have is that they just have to reach each other, and they're so big-bodied.
Yes.
But with the turtles, I can certainly see that would be a problem. But doesn't this have to then bend to get around
Absolutely.
to the female? So how does it do that?
It's mobile.
So it's got muscles in it.
It's got muscles in it, exactly.
And prehensile penis. Okay, well now they're getting more like whales.
This groove is the groove for delivery of sperm.
Oh, so it's not internal into a tube. It's actually just a trough.
It's a trough.
So the sperm could spill out of this trough?
Well, it's internalized into the female.
Okay.
When engorged, it does become much more tube-like. You know, at this point, there really isn't the congestion of blood that you'll see when they're mating.
The penis of this pet tortoise can be seen to reach half the length of its shell, and it's tipped with a bulbous end which helps lock into the female. Although sometimes males struggle to find the right mate. Joining two boxes together is quite a challenge on land. When turtles mate underwater, it's a far more graceful affair.
So how long does the actual coupling take? Have we watched this? Hours. So they're actually, they're intertwined for hours in the water.
In the water.
They're swimming in concert while they're mating. It's very
Well,
romantic.
I don't know if they're swimming in concert, but it's her job to get them to the surface to breathe.
They'd have to be. I mean, have you ever tried to paddle a canoe with somebody that's not paddling with you? It doesn't work out very well.
As elegant as it looks, having sex underwater has its risks. Jealous rival males will exploit a mating pair's need to come to the surface to breathe, and they'll force them apart. Interestingly, a female welcomes the competition. She'll mate with several males.
About 10 days to 2 weeks after mating, the females come ashore and lay their eggs. They'll lay a clutch and then another clutch a few weeks later and another clutch a few weeks later.
Oh, wow. I thought it was just one.
No, it's a whole series of clutches.
Once the eggs are laid, they're abandoned and left to their own fate. Strangely, as the female heads back to sea, tears can often be seen running down her cheeks. Legend has it that these are tears of sadness. The mystery of why turtles cry can be solved by looking inside the head.
That's the height of neurosurgery in sea turtles right there. That's it.
So inside the head of the leatherback, you would expect to see primarily brain. But what you find is the brain was just in this little channel right in the middle, and the biggest things in the brain are the salt glands, which are effectively acting like kidneys. Different animals handle salt in different ways. The sea turtle, they have no choice but drinking salt water, taking salt water in. They have to get rid of the salt. Sometimes you'll hear about turtles coming up and crying while they're nesting. What you're really seeing is the products of these giant salt glands. The material that comes out of those glands is a viscous, salty tear. It's the excess salts. And in the water, of course, you don't see them because they're being washed away. But on land, the tears will accumulate and it makes the turtle look like it's crying.
It's hard to believe that this head could ever have evolved to house kidney-like organs. But perhaps the strangest evolutionary puzzle is how the turtle got its shell. Before we try to piece that together, we're going to see how the turtle adapted to life underwater. There's very little left inside the shell apart from 2 lungs, which to me look incredibly small for what is a kind of, expert diver.
They look small to me too.
Yeah?
Let's see what happens when we put some air in them. Oh, wow.
Well, that's incredible.
That looks much more like what I was expecting. See how quickly it just recoils and drives the air out. One of the characteristics of sea turtle lungs is they're highly elastic, and that's one of the ways they can bring air in quickly and get rid of it quickly. Because when these animals come to the surface, they exhale.
They're breathing like we would sneeze all at once.
Yes.
These bellow-like lungs enable leatherbacks to hold their breath for up to 30 minutes and dive to over 1,000 meters. But we've noticed there's something wrong with this leatherback's lungs.
Okay, so we got quite a big leak out here.
Yeah, that lung's a lot smaller.
Yeah.
It looks like the boat propeller penetrated the shell and sliced through this lung. Nancy wants to take a closer look for the post-mortem.
Well, this is the left lung that's been removed from the body. This wound right here was actually created by the propeller, and as the lung was inflated, you could see air escaping from the lung here. That was actually happening during life as well. Each time the sea turtle would inhale, air would be released into the body cavity. The lung was failing to inflate properly. Suffocation could be a cause of death. Blood loss could be a cause of death. You know, the amount of trauma here is tremendous. And it was just a matter of this turtle being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
On the beach, Simon and Eve are still hoping to save some lives. They're looking for any hatchlings trapped inside their nests.
And there it is.
Batch of shells. That's a sign that at least some of them have made it out. Hopefully many more.
Got one. Got one. Oh, baby, honey. Welcome. Welcome. Hello, hello. Oh, did you just see what he did? Had his little flippers on the back? That's his camouflage. When they do this, they're resting and swimming out in the Gulf. They'll put their little flippers on the back of their shell and they look like leaves so birds don't scoop them up as food. And underneath, they're relatively light so that as fish look up, they don't see this light air, so they're kind of camouflaged against the surface of the water. So they have many ways to hide.
This guy's a bit of a straggler, but lucky for him, we found him. We can take him out to the oceans to join his brothers and sisters.
Got another one. Oh, little guy.
The second hatchling looks a lot scrawnier than the first one we found. It's not uncommon for some to come out this way.
You know, it is going to be a survival of the fittest out there. If one is consumed by predators out there, but the robust one gets away while the other one is being consumed, then, you know, that's how it is. Our goal, of course, is to make sure that as many hatchlings as possible get into the Gulf.
Before we leave, Eve's keen to show me another miniaturized reptile that shares this beach.
This is a gopher tortoise. And unfortunately for the gopher tortoise, people sometimes mistake this as a sea turtle and they'll put the little guy in the water. Look at the difference. Claws
and flippers.
And flippers. Sea turtles have very strong flippers so that they can swim very fast, very deep.
Yeah.
Gopher tortoises, on the other hand, don't like water. They live on the land, and when people mistake them for sea turtles and put them in the Gulf, they can drown because they're not swimmers, they're crawlers.
There's an important evolutionary conundrum about turtles and tortoises. Did the turtle walk onto land to become the tortoise? Or did the tortoise swim into the sea to become the turtle?
It's a very surprising fact that modern land tortoises are not descended directly from the ancient land tortoises. Instead, modern land tortoises are descended from sea turtles. What happened was that the ancient land tortoises went to the sea, like whales and like manatees, and gave rise to the turtles. And then some of the sea turtles came out of the sea and gave rise to modern land tortoises. Now we know this because if you look at the DNA of modern turtles and modern land tortoises, the modern land tortoises come from within a nested subgroup of sea turtles. They're more closely related to some sea turtles than those sea turtles are to other sea turtles.
That leaves just one last mystery to solve.
Do you know, the leatherback soup bowl is now empty. Are we now close to being able to tell the story of how this amazing shell evolved?
Oh yes, you can see it pretty clearly now. Here's the vertebral column.
So that's the back. That's the backbone.
That's the backbone, and they're individual vertebrae. It's just like you and I do, except they don't bend much. And there are the ribs. This whole shell is a modified rib cage.
Very cool.
So it's like almost an armour growing around it to produce a shell on the outside that protects everything on the inside, whereas we've got the rib cage protecting the delicate organs, but from a skeleton point of view, our shoulder blades and everything are on the outside of that. So we're just kind of the opposite.
We're the opposite.
Turtles and tortoises are not the only vertebrates to have developed armour plating, but there's a real puzzle as to how they managed to do it. Because unlike, say, armadillos, turtles and tortoises have developed the shell from the ribs, and since it completely encloses them, there's a puzzle as to how they managed to get the armour plating outside the arms and legs.
The answer lies in the peculiar way the bones develop. In most animals, including humans, the ribs grow by bending and tucking inside the shoulder blade. But in turtles, the shoulder blades are pushed further inside the body, allowing the ribs to grow around them. Meanwhile, the belly bones develop below. So that's how the arms and legs end up inside the shell. In hard-shelled turtles, the ribs expand and fuse to form a solid bone box. But in the leatherback, the ribs remain unconnected and are covered in a soft, leathery skin.
It's not hard-shelled, but it's a firm shell, and it's a flexible shell.
So there's enough movement. It's like you've got the ribs, but with gaps in it, enough to allow some movement, so that it can compress when it dives without cracking.
Exactly, and you can see, I can move this a little bit, and nothing's going crack, pop.
This armoured shield is one of evolution's greatest riddles. But like every great riddle, there's one final twist.
Given that we think sea turtles evolved from land tortoises that had shells, it's rather puzzling that there's one marine fossil called Odontocheilus, lived about 220 million years ago, that seems to have half a shell. It's got a shell on the lower part of the body, but not on the back of the body. Maybe it was guarding against predators that swooped from beneath or something of that sort. Nevertheless, it is a puzzle. Where does it fit in the evolution of turtles? Did it perhaps evolve from an ancestor that had two shells and lose the top half of the shell? Or what happened? We don't know.
This is an extraordinary evolutionary story, isn't it? And a brilliant adaptation to where these guys live. But the sad fact is you can have 230 million years of evolution, but if your anatomy comes into contact with a spinning propeller, you don't stand a chance.
Absolutely. Yeah, the carapace is a great design for protecting the turtle, but up against a speedboat, it really doesn't offer that much protection. And we need to do what we can to protect these animals.
In our final foray before leaving Florida, Joy and I join Simon to release the stragglers rescued earlier. Further up the coast, the hatchlings saved from the oil disaster are also being released. For these disorientated youngsters, which beach they'll try to return to as adults remains to be seen. But for those that make it back, they'll be the lucky winners of one of nature's toughest lotteries.
Swallowed by the sea.